Hi there, my name's Mike Kmon. I'm 29 years old and I live in Ovando, Montana, here in the beautiful northwest part of the state. I currently am a professional hunting and fishing guide working for WTR Outfitters, where I lead wilderness pack trips, wilderness horseback pack trips into the Bob Marshall Wilderness for 5 to 10 day trips, taking people fishing, sightseeing, and hunting. I grew up in a small little rural town in New Hampshire and first got fish slime on my hands when I was about 2 years old, and caught my first fish on a fly rod when I was 5, and ever since then I've never looked back. I've been a fly fisherman since. Fishing is in my blood, it's in my family. My dad taught me a lot of what I know, my brother taught me even more, and so it's been something that I've grown up with and been around my entire life. Growing up in New Hampshire afforded me a lot of opportunities to fish for a variety of species in a variety of locations. I was able to catch right there in New Hampshire all sorts of freshwater species in lakes and rivers and ponds and streams. Everything from trout to largemouth bass, smallmouth bass, perch, pickerel, sunfish. A lot of those when I was real young, and then progressively moving up to going towards the Maine and Massachusetts, Connecticut coast with my family, and fishing a lot in saltwater for striped bass, bluefish, mackerel, things like that. I was also fortunate enough to take a couple of trips up to the Gaspé Peninsula in Canada and fish for Atlantic salmon, a very elusive, very sought after, and unfortunately becoming very rare fish. I also was able to travel down to Florida at a pretty young age and catch snook and my first tarpon on a fly rod when I was 15. After graduating high school in New Hampshire, I immediately moved out to Montana, where I attended Montana State University. As soon as I started school, I also started guiding. I would go to school for the spring semester and guide during the summer and fall, so it took me a little while to get through school, but I also got an awful lot of experience while going to school. While living in Bozeman, while going to school, and I fished, unfortunately, more than I studied. I fished 5 to 6 days out of the week, and just couldn't get myself to not fish. And that just gave me such a much more solid base for fishing when it comes to how to catch fish every day. You know, it's anybody can go out on a day that's a really good day and catch fish, but what about the days when it's snowing or raining or it's 20 degrees and you know, a fish has got to eat, a fish has to survive. So how can you catch a fish on a 20-degree snowy day? Well, I can tell you how. I first started guiding here in Montana, and then I went to Wyoming and guided for a few years. In Wyoming, some of the trips that I led were in search of golden trout. These golden trout are some of the most elusive, most sought-after trout species, and I used to lead trips with guys trying to break world records or trying to break IGFA line test records. And I was fortunate enough to be a part of a lot of record-breaking catches, and that's something that I will never forget and cherish as a wonderful experience. Through my guiding, I've also really learned an awful lot. It's added a lot of tricks to my bag of tricks, you could say. I've learned a lot from very experienced fishermen, but I've also learned a lot from some not so experienced fishermen. But I think that makes me has made me a better fisherman, because I've been able to take a lot of those skills and not be so cocky in my own abilities that I can't look at somebody else and learn from somebody else. And that's definitely what I've done. I've learned an awful lot from a lot of these clients of mine. I did take a couple of years off of guiding shortly after I got married, and my wife and I moved down to Florida, a dream place that I'd always wanted to explore and live, and we moved down there, and we lived there for 2 years. And while down there, I pretty much just fished. I fished 4 to 5 days out of the week. I had a wonderful little flats boat that I was able to take out, and I learned that fishery very well. I fished a lot of tournaments while I was down there, both fly tournaments and conventional spinning gear tournaments. Through those tournaments, I was fortunate enough and skilled enough to win quite a few of them, as well as place in all the other ones. A funny story goes along with the very first tournament that I entered, which was a fly fishing tournament. Saw it advertised, and I'd been in Florida for maybe 5 or 6 months by then, and I decided, well, you know what, I'm going to enter this tournament. And so I went out and fished that day and came back with 290 points, and I thought, okay, well, that's pretty good. Come to find out, the guy in second place didn't even have 100 points, and all of these guys are, you know, these Florida natives are looking around going, gosh, who is this guy and where is he from? Well, I said, well, I'm Mike, and I'm from Montana, and you'll see me out on the water. I'm out there a lot, and they did. They saw me out there a lot, and they also saw me stand on that first place platform a couple more times, which was nice for me, at least. I also was able to do a lot of offshore fishing, something that I hadn't been real experienced with until I moved there. Offshore fishing and live bait fishing was something that was a little foreign to me at the time, but I really picked it up quite quickly, and have just fallen in love with it. I love going offshore and fighting those big, huge fish that really give you kind of a run for your money on your own strength. Like I said, we fished for amberjacks, grouper of all kinds, snapper of all kinds, mackerel. Pretty much anything that lives off the Gulf Coast I've fished for. You know, fishing to me is more than just having a skill that I can go out and have fun and to brag about. Fishing to me is something that I really truly love, and I don't hesitate in using that word when talking about fishing. You know, a lot of people say, oh, well, I'm addicted to fishing, and I can't. Well, my wife would maybe tell you that I'm addicted to fishing, but I would more or less say that I'm obsessed, or I just really love the sport. When I'm not fishing, I'm thinking about fishing and reading about fishing, or I'm tying my own flies. I tie almost all my own flies for both myself and my clients. Like I said, I just absolutely love the sport. I love trying to figure out wild animals, something that I obviously do with my guiding, both fishing and hunting. But I love to understand animals. I love to understand why they're doing what they're doing, when they're doing it, and where they're doing it. You know, understanding those types of things has ultimately made me a better fisherman, made me more well-rounded, and given me the abilities to go anywhere and catch anything without having a huge learning curve. And I ultimately think that this is something that's going to help me in this competition. I can take my knowledge from anywhere, and I can blend it together, and I can use those skills from here and for there, and I can put it together, and I can catch anything. I can catch anything on a rod and reel, whether it be a fly rod or a spinning reel. You name it, I can catch it. Saltwater, freshwater. Give me the opportunity, and I can figure it out. And it's not because I've done all of it and have been there and done all, but because I have the knowledge, because I have the base skills to do all that. I consider myself an expert fly fisherman. However, I'm extremely comfortable with all other sorts of fishing, like I said, conventional spinning gear, conventional fishing gear. So any of those types of competitions would definitely be the easiest for me. Some of the competitions that would be a little bit harder for me would probably be some of the commercial type fishing competitions. That's something that I haven't done a whole lot of, actually haven't really done any of it. So any of the trawling, seining, or long-lining type competitions would be a little bit harder for me, as well as anything that has to do with scuba diving. I've never scuba dived. I have snorkeled and free dove a little bit. However, you know, anything like that, I am comfortable with spear guns and the idea behind it. However, not as familiar as I would like to be. So anything of those types of competitions would be a little bit harder for me. I'm an extremely competitive person. My wife would say the same thing, especially when it comes to fishing and ping pong for some reason. I'm not competitive to the point where I have an ego about it. I'm not going to scream at the top of my lungs and tell people how good I am or how they should watch me and learn from me. Well, no, I allow my fishing to speak for itself, and I know I'm good, and I know that I can outfish anybody that I go fishing with, but I don't need to rub it in their face, and I let my fishing speak for itself, and that's the same exact way I will do it on this competition, is just let my fishing, let my skills speak for itself. I don't need to holler and scream and make everybody look at me. They'll look at me when they see me standing in the first place position. Something that really made me competitive was I started whitewater slalom kayaking at a young age and was a 3-time junior Olympic whitewater slalom kayaker at the age of 14, 15, and 16. I do think that I am one of the best well-rounded fishermen there is out there. I hesitate to say the best because there are some excellent fishermen out there. But I know that I am one of the best, and on any given day I could be the best, and I will win this competition if I am given the chance. A lot of my friends and family would probably describe me as a happy-go-lucky person, somebody who has a smile on their face all the time, and who doesn't let their feathers get ruffled up by much. I let a lot roll off my back. I am one of those guys that'll just kind of put a smile on my face, chuckle a little bit, and maybe just keep on going. I work well in team situations. I've been on competitive team sports, but ultimately I think I'm a better individual competitor, both because of my experiences as well as because I know that I can rely on my skills, and that's the only thing that I can rely on is myself. You know, I consider myself a thrill seeker. Obviously the job that I do is not an easy one. Being away from any sort of help, any sort of road even, to the distance that we go is a thrill in itself. It's also, doing my job has made me a very resourceful person. It's made me somebody that if I don't have it, well, I can get by without it, and I ultimately think that that would come in handy in this competition, to be resourceful and to be put in a situation that maybe not the most comfortable situation, yet you got to do what you got to do, and you got to use the equipment and the skills that you have and come out on top, and that's what I do. I ultimately think that I'm one of the best, most well-rounded fishermen that there is out there. I consider myself, like I said, an expert fly fisherman, but I consider myself an expert in fishing, period. I know that I can win this competition, and I know that if given the chance, I will win this competition. So please, please give me the opportunity to prove myself and to prove to everybody that a fly fisherman from Montana can also be the next top hooker. Thank you.